Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening this week to Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor, and it's been another busy week once again, with much to add to the bulletin. So let's get straight on with my first item. Now, here's something of interest to property lawyers, conveyancers, and those lawyers involved in major development schemes for their authorities. The Law Commission has announced it will launch a review of the legislation governing compulsory purchase, with a view to making the law simpler, consistent, and more accessible. The announcement comes in response to the government's request in November for the Commission to conduct a review of the current law as part of its commitment to updating the powers as set out in its 2022 Levelling Up White Paper. In the new review, the law reform body will examine the technical laws concerning the procedures governing the acquisition of land through compulsory purchase orders and the system for assessing the compensation awarded to parties in relation to such acquisitions. A number of promised changes from government include the introduction of new conditional confirmations of compulsory purchase orders, orders that last for more than 3 years, and the complete digitisation of the procedures. The proposed changes in the White Paper have received heavy criticism already from the Law Society, which said the reforms posed a threat to human rights. But commenting on the review, Levelling Up Minister Dehenna Davison said, "Giving councils the right tools to drive forward regeneration across our towns and cities and deliver much-needed new homes is essential to our Levelling Up mission." And Nicholas Payne's KC, Public Law Commissioner, added, "Compulsory purchase orders are essential to delivering large-scale projects, from critical infrastructure to housing developments and environmental plans. It is important," he said, "that the legislative regime is effective, consistent, and clear to both landowners and acquiring authorities. But the current laws are fragmented and complex, often leading to uncertainty and unpredictability." And the review marks the first time the Commission has considered compulsory purchase powers since 2004. We'll report further on this. Next, it is reported that Levelling Up funding is to come under much tighter financial control, thereby raising concerns about whether the policy remains central to the government's ambitions for our sector. And here's more on this. Michael Gove's government department has been banned from spending money on new capital projects without Treasury approval amid concerns about how well public money is actually being managed. Insiders had signalled that Gove's speech in Manchester on the 25th of January had prompted fears of rogue spending as he announced plans to fund a new round of local grants in northern counties. It had also been claimed that Gove's pledge in the same speech to provide £30 million to fund improvements to substandard housing had prompted fury among Treasury officials, but the Treasury has since denied this. Normally, the Treasury intervenes only to lower or remove a department's spending budget over concerns about whether it is delivering value for money. And before this move, the Department for Levelling Up could spend up to £30 million on capital projects. A government spokesperson told The Guardian, "The government's central mission is to level up every part of the United Kingdom by spreading opportunity, empowering local leaders, and improving public services. The department will continue to deliver its existing programme of capital projects as planned." Now, Levelling Up was a central part of the Conservative Party's 2019 winning election campaign and was trumpeted as an agenda aimed at breaking down the wealth gap between the North and the South. But Labour analysis has revealed that London will receive more funds than both Yorkshire and the North East. The spending ban came as Rishi Sunak conducted a reshuffle of his government in an attempt to shore up support within his cabinet. Gove has led the department for a year and a half, save his brief spell as a backbencher after he was sacked by Boris Johnson in his last act as Prime Minister. And in the reshuffle, Rachel Maclean became the 15th Housing Minister since 2010 and the 5th since 2015, as she replaced Lucy Fraser in Gove's department during Sunak's reshuffle. There's a related article in the Law Society Gazette on levelling up entitled "Not Going to Plan" from Maria Shahid, and she begins with the central point that legal advisors are keen to help clients benefit from the government's levelling up agenda. But she says, political uncertainty is the enemy of investment. Well, that uncertainty impacts upon local government too. These articles, like others we've covered recently, bring into doubt the whole levelling up policy, which is beset with uncertainties of all kinds. This matters to our members, those who advise on executive decision-making, and those lawyers who are assigned to projects and schemes that this policy was supposed to encourage over a period of many years. I turn next to the issue of diversity in the legal profession, a topic that often features in the bulletin postings. In this instance, it's gender diversity. An article in the Law Society Gazette revealed last week that women are now outnumbering men 2 to 1 in studying law, according to UCAS data, renewing the spotlight on gender diversity in the profession. Figures obtained via a Freedom of Information request show that 103,575 women applied for undergraduate courses in 2022, up from 99,315 in 2021. Meanwhile, 51,865 men applied to study law last year, up from 48,895 the previous year. Gender diversity in the profession has significantly improved over the years, but Law Society data shows much more remains to be done to improve gender diversity at senior levels. Women currently make up 53% of solicitors practicing in England and Wales, but only a third of partners. And data also shows the total number of applicants steadily rising. In 2019, 137,610 people applied to study law, and last year, universities received 155,440 applications. One commentator in the article said, "It is essential for prospective applicants to keep an open mind when pursuing a career in law. It's important to do your research to ensure you understand the qualifications required for the specific position that you want. As well as this, you should identify any relevant work experience opportunities that will help you emphasize your commitment to a career in law, such as holiday schemes, mini pupillage, marshalling, or pro bono work." Next, I turn to the sad, shameful, and utterly appalling case of Awaab Ishaq, a 2-year-old boy who died due to exposure to damp and mold in his home. This should never have happened. And last week, some important announcements were made about the government's response. The Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, announced on the 9th of February that social landlords will have to investigate and fix damp and mold in their properties within strict new time limits in a new amendment to the Social Housing Regulation Bill. The secondary legislation follows the death of 2-year-old Awaab Ishaq due to damp and mold exposure in his Rochdale flat. Gove made the announcement on a visit to Rochdale, where he met with Awaab's family and the interim chief executive at Rochdale Borough-wide Housing. The Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities has said that a consultation will be launched later this year to set the timeframes within which landlords will have to act to investigate hazards and make repairs. According to the government, the new rules will form part of the tenancy agreement, so tenants can hold landlords to account by law if they fail to provide a decent home. The changes come as the government makes amendments to the Social Housing Regulation Bill that it claims will drive up standards in the sector and hold landlords to account over the service that they provide to their tenants. The government has also suggested that further powers will continue to bolster the Housing Ombudsman in ensuring landlords learn from past mistakes. The Social Housing Regulation Bill, which is currently in Parliament, will also give the regulator of social housing new and stronger powers to proactively assess social landlords against new consumer standards. Other amendments to the bill tabled last week include improvements to insolvency arrangements, data protection, and the requirement for written reports after inspections. We will, of course, report further upon the progress of the bill through Parliament. And my final item this week is a piece on scrutiny by Ed Hammond at the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny. Now, Ed is a popular speaker at LLG conferences, and in this article, he looks at scrutiny in councils that operate a committee system of governance. Since 2012, all principal councils in England have been able to adopt the committee system form of governance. A minority of councils have shifted from the leader cabinet model or from the mayor and cabinet model in that time. But the committee system is still attractive to councillors and members of the public in many more areas. In particular, it has captured the interest of activists and councillors who feel that it provides a way for councils to be more accountable and responsive to those they serve. Hammond makes the point that structural governance change can act as a catalyst for meaningful conversations about how democratic systems can be redesigned to be more effective, the kinds of conversations that otherwise might not happen. So, scrutiny still remains an issue for committee system councils. Before the 2010 election, the Conservative Party announced plans to remove the restriction on councils around committee system operations and to put in place a new legal framework to provide for a liberalisation around governance and decision-making. This happened, of course, in the Localism Act 2011, and the relevant sections allowed any council to adopt the committee system from May 2012. And as well as reintroducing the committee system, the Act brought in new arrangements for moving from one system to another. Importantly, these changes removed the requirement that committee system authorities should operate at least one scrutiny committee. The Act and the Local Authorities Committee System England Regulations 2012 provide for committee system councils to operate one or more scrutiny committees, but only if they choose. So, what are the key considerations where these councils choose to have some form of scrutiny structure? Hammond explores how to make scrutiny work from a practical perspective and examines the nature of service committee functions and where best to carry out those functions in a new governance structure. And since 2012, around 30 councils have chosen to move to the committee system. One or two are quite large councils. And of course, many more will be looking at the possibility of change. So, governance specialists will be interested in taking a closer look at this article and the key considerations that it raises. Well, that's it from me for another week. You can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to Bulletin number 6, available now on the LLG website. So it's goodbye from me. Have a good week.